everyone, and welcome to the Nutanix Cloud Cluster NC2 on AWS session. I am Sid Mehta, a migration PSA with AWS. I work with partners on helping them build a migration practice for AWS, and I'm joined with Rahul today.
Hey Sid, hi everyone. This is Rahul Kochar. I'm a partner solution architect with AWS, and I work with partners to grow and scale their AWS practice at large.
Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you.
So Rahul, can you tell us a little bit about what is Nutanix?
Sure. So in a legacy data center, back in the yesteryears, you would run server, storage, networking in silos that were highly inefficient. Then came along in the late 2010s, the era of hyper-converged infrastructure, where they adopted the notion of software-defined storage, networking, and compute to bring it all together in one single form factor, which is called as hyper-converged infrastructure. So the same server could provide storage, networking, and host compute. And Nutanix is one of the leaders of hyper-converged infrastructure for on-prem deployments.
That's great. So Rahul, for our audience, I'm just wondering here, let's deep dive into how does Nutanix and AWS help customers achieve their business outcomes?
Sure. So Nutanix offers an innovative solution called Nutanix Cloud Cluster, which is the topic that we are going to discuss today. Nutanix Cloud Cluster helps customer use the account management features from AWS, such as the the committed spend, the relationships, to help migrate the workloads that are running on top of Nutanix, bring them over to AWS, transforms that they could build on in creating differentiated experiences and applications for their end customers. In fact, no conversation would go unnoticed if we do not talk about GenAI, right? So now imagine if you have a legacy application that has been virtualized, running on-prem on a HCI solution, but it needs cloud-native capabilities, either to transform into serverless. That's when the relationship of Nutanix Cloud Clusters and AWS comes together for our customers and our partners at large.
That's great. So it sounds like customers can easily extend their Nutanix on-prem solution and migrate over to AWS and leverage all of the benefits that AWS
all the benefits of AWS, such as scalability, reliability, cloud-native transformation, bring innovative services to their customers faster. And because it's the same control plane that Nutanix extends over to AWS, which we will talk about, the amount of upskilling that they have to do for their resources that are currently running their applications and portfolio of technology services is pretty less.
Great.
And they could still consume the goodness from AWS.
Great. So Rahul, what are some of the common drivers for customers to start thinking about, AWS and Nutanix on AWS?
That is a great question, Sid. So I would say the number one driver that the customers are looking for is workload modernization, right? The additional drivers that we've seen are disaster recovery capability. If they do not have a DR, if they want to consolidate their data center, right? And then as they're looking to build next generation applications and leverage and bring the data closer to the application services in the cloud, because the data is generated in the cloud, that's where we've seen our customers really, benefit from that better together strategy of Nutanix and AWS coming together.
Great. So it sounds like digital transformation and being able to leverage modern services from the cloud. Those sound like great drivers.
All while optimizing their on-prem platforms, lowering cost.
I was going to get to the benefits. So I think you started on the benefits.
Yeah.
Can we expand a little bit on the benefits from the NC2 on AWS solutions?
Sure. So the benefits now with NC2 on AWS are, can be stacked together. Customers can bring their Nutanix licenses over to AWS. All the AWS benefits that we all know about, agility, scalability, reliability, they can benefit that. But Nutanix's ability to bring their own licenses on-prem, from on-prem into AWS is one. Use programs like migration acceleration programs, Sid. You're the one who's very close to the program.
Sure.
So they can leverage the funding mechanism and also access the MAP funds and really kick off the whole SS phase with AWS as they come together.
That's great.
Yep.
So yeah, for our viewers who don't know about the Migration Acceleration Program, but it's a great program that helps customers receive AWS investments and offset some of the costs
Yep.
related to the migration.
Yeah.
So that can extend out to the Nutanix on AWS
Yeah.
solution, which is really good. So let's dive a little deeper into the architecture.
Sure.
And how does this look like, when you have Nutanix and customers' data center and
Yep.
AWS?
Sure. So why don't we first deploy, the services which are done, say, for example, that's your on-prem data center. Yeah. So this is your on-prem data center, and imagine you are running a few clusters of the Nutanix solution on-prem. For the purposes of the example, I've got 5 of these, and we look at they can use the EC2 instance. There are specific instance type called i3 metal, i3 en.metal, and i4.metal. So there are specific instances that they can use, and they can then extend the consumption of the AWS environment. So these are, say for example, that's an AWS region. Yeah. Now these are the EC2 instances that are running, and on bare metal. The way you would manage it is Nutanix has their control plane called Prism. So Prism is used to manage the Nutanix deployment on-prem. You then literally extend the Prism control plane to now go across on-prem and in the cloud. And so now AWS capacity looks like additional capacity where they can, migrate the workload over, because they want to extend the cloud native services from AWS. A very good example is if they want to use S3, or if they would like to use Lambda, right, as part of the application modernization. Oh, by the way, Bedrock and all the other generative AI services from AWS. So now you can clearly see when the application is closer to the ECS, to the EC2, they could now consume those services closer to
that is
the
fantastic.
native.
So it sounds like Prism helps them extend that workload mobility from on-prem to AWS and then consume there. Is this solution limited to just the Nutanix clusters that are already on-prem, or what if the customer had VMware
Sure.
workloads, or they had Hyper-V workloads here? How would these extend out into the solution as well?
Great question there. So the way we would manage that workload is, what would typically happen is somebody would say, hey, why don't you move these workloads over to the on-prem capacity, and then from there move over. Nutanix has a solution called Nutanix Move. And what Nutanix Move can do is it can actually move that capacity all the way over directly here. So using the burst capability, they could start to retire their legacy investment, consolidate. I did not talk about one of the advantages in doing this approach is the operators that are managing Nutanix, they don't need retooling, they don't need retraining. The tools that they have, the control plane observability, what they have built and established for their on-prem infrastructure, this is what I would call a true hybrid cloud deployment between, preserving what they had over there, consolidating, and then still embracing cloud in its full potential.
Sounds great. So it sounds like there's a seamless solution here to not only manage the existing cluster on AWS, but then also be able to bring in additional VMs onto this NC2 on AWS cluster.
That's right. So that you do not need to do multi-step move. It could all be done within the same process.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Rahul, for somebody that wanted to get started with this solution, learn a little bit more, what is the best place and what are some of the next steps that they should follow?
So the call to action would be, for our customers and our partners who are looking to get into the Nutanix transformation journey is to, look at the map, because map provides the lucrative funding, as you alluded to earlier, to our customers and our partners, right? So, and the funding mechanisms that come with it. So that will help them ease the whole entry into the cloud with those financial benefits. So contact a partner or contact your assigned solution architect, if you have one, to talk about how can you leverage MAP funding program kick off an assist phase and start the journey.
Sounds great. Rahul,
Great.
thanks so much for this insight. I'm sure this will be useful.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us to learn more about Nutanix Cloud Cluster on AWS. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your sales managers or reach out to AWS, and we're here to help. Thank you.